Now that book is kind of in the middle of your Bible. It's after Psalms and after Proverbs. So if you notice on the front, the logo, Marina did it for us, about what is my purpose. What is my purpose? And is life worth living? This study is going to be a very personal study for us. I'm going to be very open in sharing my own life. I think I usually am, but I'm probably going to use my hair more than you bargained for. I've known since the first of the year that I was to teach Ecclesiastes, and I've had a year of a lot of challenges on what is my purpose for living. And I find that there's many, many people in the last few months I've had of all ages. I've had high school students say, I'll talk to them, what are they going to do, or where they're going to college, or what they're going to get, and they really don't know, or they may tell me they're going to a college, well, what are you going to study? Well, I really don't know. Do you know what you want to do? I don't know. And they're saying in one way or another, what is my purpose? I've had people say to me, men and women of different stages in life, just in conversation, basically saying, what is my purpose in life? So this week I was sitting at dinner by myself, and the couple next to me were concerned that I was by myself. We picked up a conversation, and the gentleman was very free. I would say he's in early 60s. He was very free. He was proud that he was going to be retiring. He's been in the commercial fencing industry, and he was going to retire. And I said, well, so, and then what are you going to do? And he said, well, I have 5 grandchildren under the age of 5, and I'm going to enjoy them. And I said, and what else are you going to do? And his wife said, that's the problem. That is a problem. I can tell you what, there's going to be a problem. If they never had a problem in their marriage, they will. Because what is the point of getting up every morning? What is the point of, what is my purpose? No goal is a goal. It's a goal of waste. What is your purpose? Well, the spiritual talk is to do what God's will is. Okay, let's get over that. Let's get down to life. Jesus spent time when he talked with his disciples about things of everyday life. How you get along with others. What are you going to do? Things in all areas. And that's where, if you want to grow in your Christ life, based on the Word of God, you have to do it for you, not reading it and studying it for information, or for your spouse, or for your friends. It's, Lord, I want you to teach me. What does Jane need? And I can tell you, and there's 1 or 2 people that know this, otherwise I generally don't talk about it, but I have struggled at many times in my life on what is my purpose. And you say, well, you're so busy and you're so active and so forth. There's still 24 hours in the day. So you sleep 6, you get up, let's say you counsel somebody for 3. Now we got what? 12 more? What am I going to do? How many times can you mow a lawn? How many times can you push the button for the robo to go clean the house? Dust doesn't move. I just have to be sure my dog has water and food and she's put out. What else are you going to do? It's hard sometimes. You might as well own up. If you haven't said it, more than likely you have been there. Along with it comes loneliness. Along with it comes emptiness. And a lot of you are identifying with me. You think, I remember when, for various reasons, we closed our business in '94. Well, it took about a year to sell off all equipment and get some things finalized. And then, yes, there was a lot of things for Bob to do. He was restoring a car. There's always things to do. There's always drawers that need cleaning out. Just stuff it back in and forget them, is my philosophy. And after about 6 months, he went to my son and he said, let me go to work for you, or let me come help you. He had a purpose. He had something, a reason to get up in the morning. And so many of you in here, you understand what I'm saying to you. It's very, very hard. I do know that Sunday afternoons can be very hard. It was even hard when my husband was living. Because I've prepared for Sunday, we're busy, we're active. I used to be at the instruments as well as teaching and all this stuff. Now you go home. Even if you go out to eat, now you go home. Now what? Okay, some of you say football. Okay, I can turn that on in the background. Golf is on in the background. But now what? What is tomorrow? Do you realize how organized your life is early in your life? When you're born, your parents take care of you. You go in, you end up going to school. You have that discipline. You can go to school. And then when you finish school, maybe you go for a career or you go to college. And then from a big percentage of us, we meet, we get married, we have a career, we have children, and they grow up. Now we're back to what now? Then we retire. Well, what now? And no goal is a goal. And not having purpose is tough. I face it now in many ways because all my family is growing and gone, everybody's doing fine, and I'm not needed. Our culture has changed. I was teaching 5 Bible studies a week. That has changed. It's just a different world we're living in. I have my age. I was told about 3 weeks ago I was sent to a vascular surgeon just because of the weakness, and you knew what happened, that I lost the feeling in my legs last week. Actually, when the shoe fell off, I can't feel it. So this vascular surgeon, I'm not set for surgery, but we just need baselines. So I was asking him, you know, what about, which I've asked each one of my specialists, what about the future with my nerve condition? And he looked at me, he said, you'll never be any better than you are today. You'll never be any better than you are today. That means I'm 3 weeks on down. I'll never be any better than I am today. What is my purpose? What is your purpose at any age? Well, this is what Solomon writes. We're looking at, in this writing, we're going to take whatever time is needed. Today we start this. Next week, remember, there's no class because of the big celebration. And then the next week, we pick right up where we are now. Is life worth living? I can see where people would want to commit suicide. I can see where people would go to drink. I can see where people would go to things that would help them to feel better. Is life worth living? What is my purpose? Where am I going? So when we come to Ecclesiastes, in your outline I have a lot of this information, and if we don't finish the outline today, that's okay. You keep it and you bring it in 2 weeks, because it's all going to fit together each week. So Solomon wrote this he lived about 1,000 years before Christ in that area, about 960. He had been the king in Jerusalem. He was the king in Jerusalem until he died. And it's like reading his diary. He's come to the end of his life and he writes, what's the point? What's the point? I have that at the top of your outline, where it's a journal of it's a desperate journal when he writes. He said, what is the point of life? A diary that presents the truth about human life. He's very open. He's very honest. And you know what? If you want to really grow in your life, you need to be open and honest. You say, well, I don't want to share these things with somebody. Find somebody and talk. Not the person in the mirror. Stuffing never heals. It festers. So this is a journey to find meaning and value in all aspects of life. And that's where I'm dealing. And that's where most of you are dealing, if you're honest. Solomon wrote it, as I said, around 925 BC, close to 900 to 1,000 years before Christ, in Jerusalem, where he was king. And an Ecclesiastes means one that is called together in assembly. That's what the definition of the word is. What is the purpose? That life cannot be meaningful and purposeful if it's lived apart from God. That's the bottom line. And you know, folks, it's easy to say it, Now live it. That's where the rubber meets the road, is how am I going to live it? I can talk to you all the spiritual terms. But here's life. Here is life. That's what I have to deal with. So the key verse is when he starts in Ecclesiastes 1. Look at your scriptures. It says, the words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is what? Vanity. What does vanity mean? Emptiness. Means what? Emptiness. Emptiness. What else? Meaningless. Life is meaningless. So when you look back over your life, you've gone through all these things, reared your kids, whatever you've done, had your career, life is meaningless. So now what? What is the purpose? But that can be said and questioned at any age. He talks about the meaninglessness of a life. Life is considered, a life considered without eternal perspective is purposeless. We're going to learn about that. He says it seems there's no purpose in anything and no point in anything. Have you ever thought about that? Okay, so I want to see how honest you are. How many of you have thought in your life, why make the bed? I'm just going to get back in it. Let me see your hands. Yes, there you go. Isn't that the truth? And this is terrible because I know it's streaming. So one of my sons, I think he was telling me he had a roommate that didn't want to wash clothes, so he threw them all in a corner, turned them wrong side out, and put them back on the next week. And did it repeatedly until a roommate bought him a set of underwear. And as a member of our class made a statement, if you don't want to wash in an hour, you can have Amazon delivered to your door. You said that, didn't you, Bill Miller? Look. That's bad. That's okay. But you know what? We all identify with it, don't we? It didn't used to be that way when I was growing up. We didn't have throwaway diapers. How many of you know what it is to have a cotton diaper and do this on the commode? Thank you. The younger people, oh, I'm not going to touch that. Yeah. Okay. What's your purpose? Hang the diapers out. Anyway, how to live a meaningful life in a world of contradictions and seeming futility. Well, I want us to turn to, hold your place in Ecclesiastes, and I want you to turn to 1 Timothy 6. I want to see some positive on this until before we really get into this purpose thing deeper. In 1 Timothy chapter 6, verses 17 to 19, Timothy is writing and he says, he's talking to believers, charge them that are rich in this world, that they not be high-minded, nor trust in uncertain riches, but in the living God, who gives us richly all things to enjoy, that they do good. They be rich in good works, ready to distribute, willing to communicate, lay up and store for themselves a good foundation against the time to come, that they may lay hold on eternal life. That's a positive. That's what Timothy's encouraging. So there's three things that he says here that I want to say to you, because basically this ends up being the bottom line of the writing from Solomon on having purpose in our life. Number one is enjoy life. We get zoomed in on the negative of the thing, and that becomes an idol to us because that's all that's on our mind. Enjoy life. Number two is be grateful for God's gifts. I go back. In our minds, we get zoomed in on the negative. We get zoomed in on the irritations. When was the last time you sat outside and thanked the Lord for the leaves, even if they're falling on your freshly cut grass? Who cares? You're alive to enjoy it. And they change colors. And then for the chipmunks that are driving my dog crazy, I have a hard time being thankful for them. They're digging dirt out of my potted plants. And then the squirrels that are eating the wood on my arbor. It's hard for me to be thankful, but you know what? The point is be grateful for God's gifts. I have an arbor for them to chew on. And I have plants for, I hadn't thought about it that way. Forget that subject. I'll leave that alone. Okay, so enjoy life, be grateful for God's gifts, and accept life. Accept life. Let's go to Ecclesiastes, and Becky, I'd like for you, if you would please, to read. She's from the New King James Version, verses 1. Just read the chapter, it'll be the easiest. Understanding that Solomon wrote it, he's the preacher, he's the king, he's David's son who's king over Israel, and he's come to the end of his life. If you'll read, please.
The words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher, vanity of vanities, all vanity. What profit has a man from all his labor in which he toils under the sun? One generation passes away, and another generation comes, but the earth abides forever. The sun also rises, and the sun goes down, and hastens to the place where it arose. The wind goes toward the south, and turns around to the north. The wind whirls around continually, and comes again on its circuit. All the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full. To the place from which the rivers come, there they return again. All things are full of labor. Man cannot express it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. That which has been is what will be. That which is done is what will be done. And there is nothing new under the sun. Is there anything of which it may be said, see, this is new? It has already been in ancient times before us. There is no remembrance of former things, nor will there be any remembrance of things that are to come by those who will come after. I, the preacher, was king over Israel and Jerusalem, and I set my heart to seek and search out by wisdom concerning all that is done under heaven. This burdensome task God has given to the sons of man, by which they may be exercised. I have seen all the works that are done under the sun, and indeed all is vanity and grasping for the wind. What is crooked cannot be made straight, and what is lacking cannot be numbered. I communed with my heart, saying, Lord, I have attained greatness, and have gained more wisdom than all who were before me in Jerusalem. My heart has understood great wisdom and knowledge, and I set my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. I perceive that this also is grasping for the wind. For in much wisdom is much grief, and he who increases knowledge increases sorrow.
What is Solomon writing here? What is he telling you? What is he telling us?
Without God, we have nothing.
Without God, we have nothing.
Sounds very depressing to me.
I'm with you. Sounds very depressing, doesn't it? Yes. What does he say? The sun comes up, the sun goes down. 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 What's the point? There's nothing new under the sun. So we say, how is that possible? Because everything that, like AI, computers, and all this stuff, is made from stuff that's already here. It's not new stuff to make it. We put it together, but it's not new. It's the same. So you go to the beach, and the beach, or you go to the lake or something, that water, it goes wherever it's going to go, and it comes back as rain. This is what gets me when I hear people talk about, what do they call it, the green stuff and all the changing of this. You know what? The rain's coming back. The waters are not getting any different. The water, the same amount of water, the same amount of sunshine, the same amount over and over and over. What is the point? Would you say he's depressed? Right. Would you say that the world looks rather black to him? Would you say he really doesn't have a purpose at this point in his life? How do you think he's evaluating his life? pointless. He asked God, excuse me, what? Internally. This is like reading his diary or his journal. He said, so what now? What now? And so most of us, if not all of us, have. Yes?
It seems like because he was known as the most wise man in the world.
At his time, yes.
Yes. The very last verse it says, with much wisdom comes much sorrow, the more knowledge, the more grief. And it kind of seems like the saying, ignorance is bliss. A child, or even an animal like a dog, who takes each moment as it is, as it comes, and lives for that moment, as opposed to somebody who is contemplating things over and ruminating over everything. It seems like the less you know, the happier you be.
Oh, I think that's a good point. The less you know, the happier you'll be. There's a lot to
May
that.
not be smart, but
Well, he asked the Lord for wisdom. And I have to correct because I have said it and I know that. He's not the wisest man that's ever lived. He asked God for wisdom to judge his people. So he served 40 years as king. He asked God to give him the wisdom to make the decisions as king those 40 years that he served. Okay? And people came to him. He also had to be a very smart businessman, or surrounded himself with smart businessmen, because when you read about his life and the wealth that he accumulated, the animals and servants and etc. that he accumulated, but did you know that he started taxing his people severely for all of those things? We don't talk about that. Yes, Lynn?
He is writing this at the end of his life.
Yes.
I guess I'm not surprised he's depressed considering the decisions he's made at the end and all the women that he accumulated and all the wealth.
He accumulated. I like that word, all the women he accumulated. That's well said.
I mean, did not the Spirit of the Lord lead him? So I can understand his depression.
Very good. We're going there. Yes, Becky?
Well, I noticed that he said, look, I have attained greatness.
I
I
what?
have wisdom. All he's saying, not God was giving me. So it kind of seems to me that he had wisdom to deal with what he had to deal with out here, but he didn't deal with his own life.
It was very good. Jim?
To me, it seems like he's reached the end of his life and he's looking back and saying, I did everything I set out to do. Everything's done. What's next?
What's next?
There's nothing left to do.
Very good. I would agree. Let's go back to 1 Kings, and I want us to look at his life and understand some things he said that happened. Of course, it won't cover all, but when we go back to this area, let me give us some backdrops. So as I said, about 1,000 years before Christ, around 1050 BC, the people, God's people, the Israelites, they decided they wanted to look like the other nations. And they told God they wanted a king. God said, I'm your king. They want a king like everybody else had. So God allowed them to do it. They chose their king on a tall man, taller than everybody else, who was a hunk. He was desirable. He was good to look at. And God allowed them to have their king. The king was Saul. He started off okay, ended poorly, if you remember. But he served 40 years. So the one that followed him was a shepherd boy, the youngest of a whole family. And that's David. We know he picks up really about when we come to Goliath, and we know that story quite well. And he rules for 40 years, and he loves the Lord. Yeah, he made some stupid mistakes. But the scriptures say later on, he was a man after God's own heart. Isn't that interesting? And so he wants to build God a beautiful, beautiful temple to where the people can come together and worship God. Other places had their idols and had their temples, but he wanted one to the God. And God said to him, David, you cannot build that temple. Tell me why. Because why? Okay, blood in his hands. Why was there blood on his hands? He was a warrior. He was a warrior. God used him. He brought in, enlarged the territories, and he couldn't do that. Yes?
He also killed his second wife's husband.
Killed his second wife?
Uriah.
Right. He had that blood on his hands by having Uriah killed. But God says, here's what you can do. I'm going to give you the architectural drawing for that beautiful, beautiful temple. And you have the ability to get all of the supplies. They would come from Lebanon for the wood. They would come from different places, the gold and everything that was done. He said, you'll have it all laid out. And I can, being in a construction family, I can see walking onto a site with everything for $100 million house to be built. Here is stacked the marble, here is stacked the stone, here is stacked the granite, here's the bathrooms, and here, and all the paint, and everything's ready. And he said, your son will build it. So 40 years, David is king. He dies, and who becomes the king? Solomon. Solomon reigned for 40 years. Solomon got to see that temple go up and to see all the beauty. Solomon was the one that asked for the wisdom. But he added a few things. He not only happened to like women, it appears, but there was a lot of politics involved, which is very common, still common, I believe, in England and over in that part of the world, where you marry a family member off to somebody so that you have that government and that connection with you. They may get married, but a lot of times we find in history that, okay, so you married the princess of who's-you-ma-call-it country, how's that? You're married to them, so that's connecting our countries, that's a political connection. But I've got my mistress and my real wife over here. That's very, very common if you go back into history. And you have that. So he accumulated all these women for various and sundry reasons, but generally they were for politics, to keep peace and keep the countries united. And he had concubines. Unbelievable the things that happened. So now here in 1 Kings, he talks about, if you go back and you read chapters 9 and 10 of 1 Kings, it talks to you about all the things that he had accumulated. And in chapter 11 it says, but King Solomon loved what?
Woman.
Woman. Many, what kind of them? Foreign. Oh, I got a King James, what does it say? Strange. How is that one? That could bring a lot of discussion, couldn't it? Well, they would have been of different nationalities from different places. But anyway, he loved many strange women together with the daughter of Pharaoh. That would be from Egypt. And women of the Moabites, the Ammonites, the Edomites, the Zecharites, the Hittites, of the nations concerning which the Lord had said to the children of Israel, you shall not go into them, neither shall they come into you. For surely they will turn away your heart after their God. Solomon clave to these in love. What happens when we disobey? We think, oh, this one time, it won't matter. Or politically, I needed to do this. You know, we still have that in politics today. Coming from a family that's been involved in politics, oh yeah. Dirty. It's just plain dirty. It's where it's hard to believe that somebody can be a Christian and be in politics today. As my son said, you probably won't serve at one time if you stick to your convictions. There's something to that. But anyway, so verse 3, so he had 700 wives. Now some of you in this room can't get along with one. He had 700. Of course, he had servants to take care of them. But anyway, he had 700. He had 300 concubines. So what's that total? 10,000.
Sound like a man of wisdom.
He's not a man of wisdom. Okay, and his wives did what? Turned away his hearts. And this is why. It came to pass, when Solomon was old, that his wives turned away his heart after
Other gods.
other gods. And his heart was not perfect with the Lord his God, as was the heart of David his daddy. Isn't that interesting? His heart was not the same as that of his dad's. Now let's stop here a minute. Daddies, how many of you have children that have not followed through the same integrity or thinking or principles that you have? The disappointment, the hurt. He had this here. The heart, he was not like his daddy. So Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Zidonians. He went after Milcom, the abomination of the Amorites. Solomon did evil in the sight of the, and went not fully after the, as did his daddy. So when he brought these women in, he brought in their gods. And the scriptures tell us he built temples for every woman's god. I didn't know Israel could be that big, for that many temples. Because he had 1,000 women. They brought in their gods. Ashtoreth, the god of infertility, of getting pregnant. We have another one in here, Moloch, the god where they gave their children up as sacrifices. They would burn their children. A number of years ago, there's an article in the Atlanta Journal. There was in Tennessee in a motel room. They went to clean it, and when they went in, a child had been sacrificed, and there was blood everywhere. That's America. But they sacrificed their children to the gods. Then you remember in Ephesus, they had the Temple Diana, remember? And all on the streets, you had these poles like your telephone poles, and they all had all these breasts hanging, and they would walk along and they'd pet them. And on the temple step, they have 10,000 prostitutes. These would primarily be young women under the age of 15. Their legs remained open for the service of all the men. They got the money, and it was okay because they gave the money to the temple. They were worshiping their God in that fashion. You go back and read about it. So he brought the women and their gods and built them temples, and that was the downfall. So verse 6, again, Solomon did evil in the sight of the Lord. He went not fully after the Lord as did David his father. Then did Solomon, he built a high place for Shema, the abomination of Moab, in the hill that's before Jerusalem, and for Moloch, the abomination of the children of Ammon. And likewise did he for all of his strange wives, which burnt incense, and sacrificed unto their gods. And the Lord was angry with Solomon because why? His heart was turned from Lord God of Israel, which had appeared to him twice, and had commanded him concerning this thing that he should not go after other gods, but he kept not that which the Lord commanded. So the Lord said to Solomon, for as much as this is done of you, and you have not kept my covenant or my statutes, which I commanded you, I will surely rend the kingdom from you, and I'm going to give it to your servant. But not in your days. I will not do it because of David your father's sake, but I will do it at the hand of thy son. Howbeit I will not rend away all the kingdom, but I'll give one tribe to your son for David my servant's sake, and Jerusalem's sake, which I have chosen. And the Lord stirred up an adversary unto Solomon, and we go on into that. Let me just tell you that the situation that happened. So God said, you brought in all of these other gods, you have not kept me as your God. You've accepted all these others. And he said, I'm going to honor what I told David, that basically through his line, through his lineage, would come the Messiah, the Word of God. That's what came through that lineage. But he said there'll be correction coming. He said, Solomon, I won't do it to your son, but I'll do it to your grandson. your grandson. That's when it changes. And you know what happened? The kingdom was divided. David's kingdom was divided into two things. We have Israel, which had 10 tribes, and we have Judah, which has 2 tribes. That's Judah where Jerusalem is. That's Ephraim, the connecting, right next to it. 2 tribes, and they call it Judah. They use the one name. But in Israel, we have 10 tribes. When this happens, about 150 years later, because of judgment, God has Assyria come down and take Israel. And Assyria owns that part of the land. 150 years after that, after many prophets have warned again and again to Judah, you're going to be just like your brother. You're going to be taken. You're not following God. And we come to a time around 600 BC. They had 150 years warning. And Babylon takes over Jerusalem. And that's the story of Daniel. Can you see the judgment on down? What is my purpose? Solomon's purpose was not to bring in all these women and to build their gods. It took its toll. Vanity of vanity, all is vanity. We'll do that second page later. I want you to turn to the back page. I want to leave you with the 3 things, which basically is the end of his writing in chapter 12. The bottom line is, number 1, fear God. That means respect God, what he has to say. Number 2 is to obey God. And number 3, someday you will face God. Quite a summary for a diary and a man who bears his soul. May it be an impact on your life. Let's pray. Father, thank you. Thank you so much that you do have directions and answers for when we wonder about purpose. What is our worth? Why should this and that? Lord, may we fear you. May we obey you. May we look to you for that gap. Lord, you've been very faithful through my life when I've really spent time just talking to you about it. You can calm the fears. You can quiet my spirit. You can give instruction. May I take heed. Lord, I pray that for each one in here. May this, your word, be life-changing for every person in here and every person that watches this online. I thank you that you will do it. Your spirit will speak to us. And I give you the praise. And everyone said, amen. Be blessed. We'll not see you next week because there's a big celebration. I'll see you in 2 weeks.